Diablo 4 and Path of Exile 2, both the current leaders in the action RPG genre. With the Season 11 of Diablo and patch 0.4 of Path of Exile having been out for nearly a month now, the age-old question of which to play crops up, or which is better. Well, in this video today, I want to discuss which game is worth your time to jump into. We'll be looking at the current state of each of the games, comparing them against each other, and determining which is quote-unquote the best. If this is your first time on my channel, the way I do things though is by upfronting the knowledge in my video. So let me start out by saying there is no best game ever of any genre. What you like and what you want out of a game is entirely subjective. Diablo 4 is in an awesome place right now. But if you hate Diablo or you've been burned too much by Blizzard, then I totally understand shelving it and it's just not the game for you. Path of Exile 2 has just had, honestly, its best patch since the game came out, adding the best Druid experience I've had in an ARPG since D2's Druid. But if you don't like the complexity of the passive system or you're struggling with the performance issues, then I understand you shelving this game instead. This video is not meant to throw one game in the mud and hold the other aloft, but more meant to show you the state of both games so you can make an informed decision. With that being said, I will tell you my opinion, and what I've had the most fun with is Diablo 4 compared to Diablo 2 coming into these seasons. I think Diablo 4 is just the stronger game right now. Keep in mind though, and this is a statement I'll echo throughout this video, we're comparing a game that is in its first year of early access to a game that's going on its third year of production. Really what it comes down to is that D4 or Diablo 4 is just way more stable from a performance standpoint, and it's less of a grind. You make a character and you're immediately playing a diet version of the game's endgame while also contributing to that endgame's progression via aspect unlocks and paragon progression. That is to say, if you've already completed the campaign. If you're jumping in for the first time, you'll have to complete the campaign. Path of Exile 2's campaign is its biggest pain point right now. It's just way too slow and grindy, catering too much to the people that know the game inside and out that blitz through it in a handful of hours. Also, the performance snags really hard, either spiking your PC's temperature or grinding your console to a halt. Then you have the soft crashes where the game freezes for about a minute, shows a black screen, then resumes. We'll talk about my solutions to a lot of these issues, and don't worry, Diablo 4 definitely has its cons, but that's the too long didn't watch this entire video. So if that's all you want to know, please feel free to shut the video down. I want to be respectful of your time. You can jump ahead to any part of the video that interests you the most using the chat prism of the timeline in the description. And if you find the info in this video helpful, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe, as each one of those things helps me out in a huge way. And as always, you can find a link to my Twitch below where I stream every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Well, let's get started on which game is better, Diablo 4 or Path of Exile 2. Let's load into Diablo and talk about that first. Now, I haven't played Diablo 4 since, I want to say season 7. I'm not sure which season was the DLC. But the way the game is right now, with season 11, they gave you access to the new Paladin early. That's coming with the DLC in March time or so. And with that, the game is in a pretty great place. So let's talk about some of those improvements, some of those changes. But let me quickly say, before we get into that, my biggest pain point with Diablo is the biggest draw for season 11 is this Paladin. And this Paladin is locked behind a DLC. That's fine. The Spirit Seeker was locked behind a DLC, just like it was earlier. But if you think back to Diablo 3, the Necromancer was part of its own standalone purchasable paywall. And then the Crusader was part of the Harvester of Sorrow. Wait, no, that's a Metallica song. The Crusader was part of a DLC. Think back to D2. Its 2 extra characters were part of a DLC. So that's a big point of contention that a lot of people have brought up, saying, hey, this is a paywalled character. Unfortunately, I'm not saying it's a good thing, right? I'm just saying it's unfortunately fitting with the way that the entire Diablo franchise has been for ages. Even if you want to go back to D1, which brought the monk with its expansion. Now, looking at this character though, and the way the game is now, it's a lot more streamlined. It's a lot more accessible. There are things that were common pain points before are really kind of lifted here. Basically, when you jump into Diablo, you're going to play the end game and immediately. You'll be able to come over here and pretty much this to this section, this is just what you're playing, normal to penitent. Then once you get into Torment, and Torment 2 and 3 and 4, this is the actual end game. Why this is good and why this is nice and why I will be using this as a comparison point when we talk about Path of Exile is that you can just play the game immediately. You don't have to go jump through any hoops. And I think that's the biggest point here. The game runs so well too. So if I just bring up the map here, I jump into this Helltide immediately. Brand new character, go to the Helltide. If you've not played the game since launch, you have these new boss layers, and the boss layers drop these further keys that you then do another boss with, and you have all of your, now that we're on season 11, you have a ton of season, what do I want to call them? Season events or season mechanics that have now just made their way into the base game. There's just such a quality of life and improvement on the way that this game is delivered nowadays. It's much easier to jump into if you've already played before, and if you're playing for the first time, there's plenty of crap to go through. Also, too, you remember how you used to have to go through all this and do everything in these locations? Like, okay, let me go through, and it's a brand new season. I got to do all the things in this location again and again and again every season. They ended that, I think, like right around the DLC for the Spirit Seeker, or whatever the name of the weird monk is in this game. Spirit Seer, I think it is. So that process has been streamlined. And then when you get into the actual end game, again, you have further induction of other mechanics, again, like these layers. And then into that, with the actual mechanic of the season, we get to visit Hadriel and use kind of a teaser to the eventual Haradra cube that we'll be getting access to with the DLC. So this whole season kind of plays as a primer to a grander season. So that's kind of worth noting. Also, too, is the way that the new season system works. So here's your season. You go through this like you've gone before, and you complete these little ditties, and you level your stuff up. This is no new system if you've already played Diablo 4 before. If you're brand new to it, basically, you start here and you unlock these. Previously, you'd have to do a certain amount in rank 1 to then unlock rank 2, certain amount to then do rank 3, certain amount to rank 4, ad infinitum. The way this works now is you have to unlock these respective ranks by doing the game's capstones. It's a really good way to keep you as a player from outpacing your objectives. So for example here, this is one of them. Recommended level 30, hard, unlocks season rank 2. Or this one right here, recommended level 50, penitent, unlocks season rank 3. So if we take a look at my season ranks, okay, I'm ready to do level 4 now. It says complete Den of the Apostate level, a monster level pit tier, monster level pit tier level 30, torment 2. So I go and do torment 2. I go over here to the pit and do the pit. And I do it at level 30, and it unlocks this, and I'm good to go. I thought I did that last night, but I guess not. So that it's way easier to push through this because you have the season's mechanics as kind of your own. Think of them as windbreaks. You can't push forward into the next season until you are able to do that location. Complete Breach of Sins, monster level pit, tier 5, 45, torment 3. If you can't do that, you just can't progress. So you have to get your character to a point to be able to do that, which I actually very much like. This prevents people from having builds or anything that just kind of gets sloppy at a certain point and they can't push forward, and thus locking the character. This allows you to really kind of be able to step through piece by piece. The season's blessings too, they don't give you any benefits to experience like they used to do, which is what people would default to. So that's a better system. Now, another thing too, and this is always, we use this word again, contention, is battle passes. Battle passes are always going to be a pain point depending on how you look at them. The way that these are done now is it's rather than it being a linear line from 1 to 100 or 1 to 1 or 50, whatever kind of numbering mechanic they've chosen, you have the battle pass reliquary, then you have the premium battle pass reliquaries. So this one's free, and you progress through this as you see fit. You earn these little tokens up here. I'm going to go ahead and right click this. This is a favor token, and you just go ahead and claim it. Boom. That's all that you wanted from the battle pass. You're good. You just claim that bad boy and you've got it. And then too, if you want and you claim the premium battle pass, and this happens for me all the time, you know, like I'll have a premium battle pass and it's like, I just run out of time. I can't complete the battle pass. But this allows me to go, okay, well, I got the armor for the paladin. That's what I'm playing. That's what I want to do. I like never play druid, so I don't care about this armor. I don't have to waste progression on it if I don't want to. So that's a nice, cool part of the system. In addition to are these tokens, the tokens you earn through completing these season objectives or by just simply killing monsters. And if you do, you'll cap this thing out. So if you could click over here and we go over to this favor cap, you can hold up to 99 favor tokens. Once you reach that number, you must spend them before you can earn more. Here's the most important part. Favor tokens up to the cap of 99 will carry over each season. So you can complete the battle pass and technically earn progression on the next battle pass. So that's a really cool, it's a cool way to change this system, which I think is an antiquated system, right? Like you look at a system like the way Helldivers does it, where you buy the pass and you just own it for life and you unlock as you want to unlock. That's a really cool system. And I think you can do that now. More than just the battle pass, be on the lookout for the special relic. You have event reliquaries now too, which is really cool. But this is a nice improvement to the system. So you have a lot of great things here. Also to the way that the Paladin works, it's just absolutely great. I have to give credit here to, I was really worried how the Paladin might feel. Would it feel too much like the Crusader and not like the Paladin of D2? Would it feel too much like the Paladin D2 and take none of the cool things of Crusader? They really did a good job of slamming both together to get a character that is really goddamn fun. It almost kind of borrows a little bit from the World of Warcraft Paladin 2, with a lot of the way that like consecration works and a lot of these other fun abilities here like Fortress. So there's a lot of cool things going for the way the Paladin operates. It's also just disgustingly overpowered right now. So you'll see in the gameplay in the next section. But overall, the game feels really good. A lot of quality of life things that I've like even forgot to mention too are just so evident as well. The way that aspects work is a lot more streamlined. It's a lot less cumbersome. Even too, so if I want to click this little raven, if I have 10 grim favors from the tree of the Whispers of the Dead, I just go claim it here. I don't have to go over to that tree. And all of the towns have been truncated down to not have crap all over the place. So it's just overall a lot more impressive of a game. I think one of my favorite quotes is from one of my favorite YouTubers, Mr. Llama SC. He was saying, yeah, Diablo 4 is in a great place. Does it play a lot like Diablo 3? Did they just kind of create a better Diablo 3? Yeah, but it's in a great place. And I think I echo that sentiment. It does feel a lot like a better Diablo 3 that has more punch to it. All the endgame stuff feels really strong. But let's talk about some other issues with Diablo. So Diablo is, again, it's kind of unfair too, because Diablo's my like favorite game franchise, or one of them. I have a video coming out called My Gaming Mount Rushmore, and the Diablo series is on it. The very first game I ever really was able to play on a computer was Diablo 1 on my family's computer. So it holds a special place in my heart. So we have to consider that. Also, again, we're looking at a game that's in production for 3 years versus a game that's in early access. But Diablo has its faults. And its faults are linked more to the mechanics of the game. If you really like sweaty building, if you wanna get into the nitty gritty, the number crunch of this, there is a place for it in Diablo, because the Paragon system and how you have the Paragon boards and rotating the Paragon boards and using all the skill gems, or I guess Paragon gems. I don't know. I can't remember the actual terminology. That's all great and it's fun, but the complexity is not as complex as Path of Exile. It does kind of fall on its face there. I will say this too. If you've never played Diablo, going through its campaign for the first time is honestly, in my opinion, really fun. I didn't like Diablo 3's campaign very much compared to Diablo 4's. I enjoyed 4's because it was a lot more like, it's less cut and dry evil. It's more, are we the bad guy? Who's the bad guy here? It has more gray area in it. So it played a lot more with a lot of different themes, which I liked a lot. So those are a lot of mechanics that are present in Diablo 4. But again, if you want really big build diversity, it's not really there as much. Every single class has a set of skills that are broken apart, like usually like 3, 4, or 5 like build distinctions. Like, okay, the Paladin can have a Judicator, a Juggernaut, a Zeal, an Arbiter, all these different distinctions, and you go along the theme of those skills to make your build. But you can't do anything completely wild and left field. Like the Paladin will only ever use Paladin skills, just like the Barbarian will only ever use Barbarian skills. that is what is kind of strong about Diablo, but it's also a weakness when we compare these two games. Your build diversity is very minimal. In addition to that too, one thing that, and I'm going to compare Path of Exile to this too, because I think Diablo 2, as I will say again, is the gold standard of action RPGs. Everyone kind of looks back at it with rosy tinted glasses, but at the same time, rightfully so, because we have a refresh of it and it still holds up. Diablo 2 has so much gravitas from its world. You know what the Chaos Sanctuary is like. You have roughly 5, 6, 7, 8 different mob types that can spawn there, and you get an RNG of 2 or 3 or 4 of them, whatever it is, depending on your difficulty. And you know what's going to happen. You know what builds shine there and which ones don't. You can do this, the pit, the cellar, all the different places in Diablo 2. Diablo 2 does not have this vast network of crazy endgame stuff, but it has, with that, the capability to feel attached to the world in a better way than you do in Diablo 4. Diablo 4 feels like a lot of disembodied maps that you're running through to do to get currency for an end game. It doesn't feel impactful, right? Doing ball runs, doing Mephisto runs of old D2 felt impactful because you were doing a very specific thing to net a set loot table. Those things, I think, even though it's the same dungeon with the dungeon's RNG being like, okay, the entrance is over here rather than over there, those things are not like the true RNG that we get now with dungeon creation, and RNG being, random number generator. So what I'm saying here is when you play through Diablo, Path of Exile, Last Epoch, Titan, well, I don't know if Titan Quest 2 has a ton of RNG just yet, but any of the games that really use all this RNG for the creation of their maps, it's not conditional formatting. My brain won't remember it for some reason. There's a word for not progressive map generation, but you guys will know and let me know in the comment sections. I know you will. But my point is, it feels hollow. It was my biggest pain point with Diablo 3 is you're running through these greater rifts, and the greater rifts don't attach to anything. It's just a disembodied location that you run a shit ton of times. It's my biggest problem with this game. This game has got such a cool lore and a very verbose world, and it has so much character thriving underneath it, and this whole spanning lore across 4 games now that it's created. But the end game is just running these disembodied locations over and over and over. So that's my biggest pain point with D4. And it's something that I share with Path of Exile, but it's only fair to talk about the things that I don't like about this game when I've already just talked about all the things that I do obviously like about it. Moving on to Path of Exile, we have a real awesome fucking druid. So this is the werewolf. Right now I'm glowing red because my rage bar is at max. You won't glow red natively when you play the druid. And with the druid, we also get the introduction of the talisman. This is here for a purpose. So I know it's kind of annoying and clipping with things, but try to pay attention to that because it's going to come back to us when we talk a little bit more about the issues with performance. But basically, I want you to see that spike that's happening. So right now, what you can see here, someone wants to buy my item. I've got this talisman, and this talisman has these little icons. So I switched to bear form, and look how sick and fluid that transition here is, right? To wyvern form, and each one of them specializes in a different element and mechanics. Like the bear form here is going to be doing a lot of slam mechanics and fire. The werewolf mechanic has summoning in it. It's got a lot of cold damage. Wyvern's got a lot of lightning damage. It can fly. So you have a lot of really awesome things that have been brought in with just this druid. Now, in addition to that, if you've not played since the game came out, the game feels a lot different, a lot better. It's been streamlined in a lot of regard. A lot of quality of life improvements have been made. If I go over, look at the, okay, all right. We go look at the stash. Oh, my stash is a mess right now, but now we've got tabs for all the maps here. It just, selling things is now way better too, because we have the market panel. So this is built into the game. It used to be on its own web page, and you can actually have people, you can make it so that you have a merchant, and that merchant will sell things for you when you're offline. Like right now, this guy messaged me like it would be like a normal situation, but that merchant can do the selling like you would normally have. And also with that, we have our passive skill tree that has been fixed up in this region. This was not like this at the beginning of the game. It was much janketier, if that's the term I'm going to go with. So this includes a lot of minion abilities, a lot of totem abilities, a lot of elemental abilities, even some slam stuff is in here that the warrior can take advantage of. So there's a lot of bleed in from these two angles, and it adds just a lot of fun, a lot of diversity, a lot of complexity into Path of Exile. And I think it's something that we really needed. Also too, you know, we get just such a cool class with this, and we're going to see a bunch of gameplay in the next section here. But this character, like, this is such a strong character. The druid has access to just so many things. And if we pop into our, this was a port gem. Let me go ahead and use a skill gem. You can see these are flavored across the specific animal. So you can select this, means that you're going to use the werewolf's base attack, which is shred. If I switch to this, I get the bear's base attack, which is maul, and the wyvern's base attack, which is rend. That's the only thing that matters when it comes to these 3 buttons. The rest is all done. The shape-shifting is all done then from these respective skills. So this gives you the capability to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to predominantly play as, let's just say, a wyvern, which is going to switch this to rend. But I want to use maybe the Arctic howl of the wolf. I don't know why you would, because it's freeze buildup and the wyvern's more lightning based, but still, you can jump around to different capabilities or different not summons, different shapeshifts as you see fit. And it's a really awesome fluid system. In addition to that too, you also have these thunderstorm capabilities, elemental damage capabilities. You have volcano, you have thunderstorm here, you've got tornado, and tornado can pick up the element of any of the grounds it goes off of. So if I, you know, cast volcano and I cast tornado would have done physical damage, but it goes over the volcano and now it's going to do fire damage. Or I've used any of my capabilities as a werewolf that then created a ground patch of frost. Well, now this is a frost tornado. So you can do a lot of interplay with a lot of really cool abilities that pertain to the elemental portion of the field here. Entangle and Thrashing Vines are 2 really great abilities that you can have a lot of fun with their new overgrown mechanic. So it grows the vines, it adds more capabilities to them. You can slam them to do a bunch more crap. There's so much stuff built into the druid that is, honestly, it's really exciting in the ways that a lot of other classes aren't, because there's a lot of really cool synergy built into them. You get these cool thunderstorms, like this build right now. If I have a whole video exclusively on this build, so if you want, that's linked in the upper right hand corner. This build uses Shred and Arctic Howl and Lunar Assault. Those are all frost capabilities, right? Like I'm doing like this and like a little bit of that, and then we get this. So that's all happening, being done with. I've got my really cool Lunar Blessing. You'll see all this again in the gameplay portion. And Herald of Ice, all that's going down. But then I've got cast on Elemental Ailment. So whenever I freeze something, I then cast Thunderstorm, which then drenches things, which makes it easier for me to shock and freeze them. And then I have an ability that says anytime hits from supported skills always shock drenched targets. So I'm always shocking targets. So I'm shocking things, I'm freezing things. And then if I go to my passive skills, and this is kind of this is the bread and butter of Path of Exile, right? You get these nested skills with passives, with supports. This is how this game is supposed to be played. And it's intoxicating, because once you kind of get a little bit into this system, it can really get away from you. You can really just kind of go hard in the paint on it. And I'm not even completed with this. This is like preliminary build. And then from here, you can go in different directions that make sense for you, as that video denotes. But so we've got a bunch of chill stuff and elemental damage and cold damage. But now that we can shock things, we do 30% increased damage with hits against shocked enemies, or 25% increased lightning damage with longer shock duration. So we get to play with stuff really well. And I think this is what really I think more than any class that's been added to Path of Exile so far, the druid shines in. It can just go so many different directions. If I want to do a lot of those elemental skills, well, I can come over here to stuff like this. When you shapeshift to human form, gain increased spell damage. So you can have a build that relies on popping in and out of human and shapeshift form. You can have a build like mine, which just stays in shapeshift form. I get all these werewolf forms over these werewolf abilities over here for more life leech and max cold resist and cold damage and skill speed, all this cool shit. And on top of it, remember how this game operates, right? We talked about the big difference between Diablo and Path of Exile builds, in that Diablo builds are Diablo builds. I am a paladin only using paladin abilities. Well, I'm a druid using primal, but so many meta build, quote unquote, right? Or so many quote unquote meta builds right now are rangers that would otherwise start with bow, pulling in primal capabilities into their build, maybe with a splash of elemental stuff from the sorceress. So that's my point here. The druid doesn't just add the druid, it adds the talisman, and the talisman adds those primal skills. And those primal skills are amazing for a lot of different builds. Mercenaries are really going into this hard in the paint. You've got cool warrior builds that play off of a lot of the slam mechanics and jagged ground mechanics that all of the bear generates. And remember, if we go to mace, almost, if I just type in jagged, okay, well, that's a bunch of jagged ground. If I type in slam, those are all slams. You've got a lot of fire damage in all of this. So mace and primal work so well together, and they actually give, that's a stupid pun and it's totally unintended, but it gives the warrior some teeth. It allows the warrior to really bite back and do some really fun, cool builds that the warrior has struggled with. And I'll talk about that in the pain point section. But I think this is one of the best classes added to the game because it added so much diversity to a lot of other classes. I don't talk about this in the pain point, but I think it's worth bringing up. The druid is a shapeshift class. It also is an elemental class. It is a very minorly focused summon class. Pounce by default will summon up wolf minions, and then you can use a support gem to then, you can use a spirit gem to use wolf pack to get even more, to get wolf companions, which are different than minions slightly. So there is that mechanic, but I think that it's something that does kind of fall a little short for me, is I really wanted the druid to be a summon class, because I played a summon druid in Diablo 2 and I've always liked that idea. Even last epoch I made a summon druid, so it does suffer from not having that. And we also are missing the third ascendancy, which will come either with launch or at another patch. We have the shaman and we have the oracle. The third one should be focused on specifically shapeshifts. The other two do benefit them, but these two are more around rage generation or around critical hits and a hidden passive tree. Like the oracle, you see this tree? The oracle has a hidden portion of this tree that you can't see here. If I was an oracle, you'd be able to see a bunch of nodes that only the oracle can see. So I think like a lot of that stuff kind of is what makes this such a cool one. The huntress had a lot of cool abilities, but it was a pure dex class, and that's great and all, but it didn't add a lot to the game that the other classes next to it didn't already have in some way, shape, or form. With this, we actually get a big fleshing out of this section, which the Templar is going to do even more. But if I type in minion here, look at that. There's so many minion nodes that weren't there before. That's really exciting stuff. My assumption is that the Templar is going to be a light minion class, but you have a lot of really cool stuff here across elemental stuff, or across slam, or across fire, or across totem stuff. There's a ton of totem stuff like this. Unlimited number of summon totems reserve spirit set to 75 spirit each. This character can actually do some really cool totem stuff as well. But there's totem stuff over here that shared this down with the warrior. So warrior totem play is a lot more accessible now. So there's a lot of really fun things that I think that the druid brings to the table that no other class has brought thus far. So the current state of Path of Exile 2 is contentious. It's in a great state when you look at it from a build perspective, a class variety perspective, from so many different ways to approach the game. And I think that's the most exciting thing that the game has always had going for it. You know, when you look at Path of Exile 1, it's one of the biggest things. You look at Path of Exile 2, people get scared at the constellation of passives, but after kind of really watching maybe one video from someone or 10 minutes of really sitting down and looking at it, you can see the threads that really blend themselves together. But there are some things that I think really create a lot of inertia for anyone trying to get into the game. And one of the best ways to convey this is from a development standpoint. What is preventing the player from having fun? And the thing that's preventing the player from having fun is exhaustion, is grind, is that inertia. So when we take a look at Diablo 2, and we'll take a look at Diablo 2, is it's kind of universally looked at as that original gold standard template of action RPGs. Diablo 2, you booted the game up and you went through acts 1 through, well, eventually into 5, right? And you did that ad nauseum, right? You did that into normal, into nightmare, into hell difficulties. And then they added some stuff that you could do in the end game, but pretty much you were just farming those locations over and over. That was fine. And it still is fine. People play Diablo 2 Resurrected all the time for the same exact thing. Even new players who don't have that rosy tint of nostalgia do the same thing. And what's happening in Path of Exile 2 is you start Act 1, and Act 1, I think, is the perfect act. It's the best act in the game because it has the perfect pacing. It's not too ridiculous in its side quests. You just get right through it. Act 2 is where it starts to get a little bit slow. And then Act 3 is longer than both Act 1 and 2 put together. And I'm saying that purely off of feel. It feels way longer. You have to backtrack over yourself. It's super tedious. And then you have to go down to a whole nother portion once you've drained the moat or whatever the hell it is. And then after that, you think you've beaten the act. Nope, now you got to go back in time like it's Chrono Trigger. I think that act needs to be either divided in 2 or it needs to be like 33% shorter. I think you can reduce some of the fatigue of Act 3. I think Act 3 is what breaks people in this game. They hit Act 3 and they immediately bounce off. Well, maybe not immediately. Once they complete Act 3, they're like, oh, I'm exhausted. Wait, what do you mean? I'm not in the end game and I still have to do Act 4? Especially the way Act 3 ends, it's like cataclysmic. So Act 4, which is admittedly really cool, but it suffers from the same thing that Act 2 does in that it feels there's like a lot of tedium. I like Act 4 because you're going to these different locations, but okay, you have to go back to the boat, talk to someone on the boat, then go to the new place, then go back to the boat. And I guess you could look at the boat as a social hub, but rather than just having to go back and forth to this boat, it should be more of a streamlined process that is more of a linear one and less of a choose your own adventure, because people, unfortunately, the current circumstance with video games now is when presented with choices, people don't choose what they want. They choose what they think is the best. So it slows down people's way to approach things, or they get analysis paralysis. Well, should I go to this one or that one? Which one's the best way to go? I think it should just be more of a linear approach to Act 4 to get them through it faster. I do like the interludes. I think the interludes are a good inclusion of the game. But again, by the time you've hit those interludes, they can be so much shorter. If I'm thinking of that system as it is, that's how you'd modify and make it better. But again, if we're talking about what is preventing the player from having fun, it is that inertia. And I'm now going to compare the game to Diablo 4. And looking at Diablo 4, brand new season 11, I start a brand new Templar character because I was just released. I'm immediately in the end game, or at least end game light, right? I'm doing Hell Tides. I'm doing dungeons to unlock my aspects. I'm doing world bosses. I'm doing legions to get mass amount of levels, and it's all streamlined. It's quick. It's easy. Now, another big thing too, when it comes to that, if a comparison point for Path of Exile 2 is when you start a brand new character, you have to go through the campaign and you have to find all of the weapon specialization manuals. Those weapon specialization manuals give you passive points, so you cannot skip those. You need them. Once you go through the first time, they should be account unlocked, just like it is in Diablo. Diablo 4 has a ton of things you have to do the first time around, like go find all the Lilith statues and all sorts of stuff to give you additional skill points. The game just gives you those skill points when you make a new character so that you're immediately off to the races in your build. Does that trivialize the end game? Yeah, absolutely. But when you are a veteran, who cares? You just want to get to the end game as fast as possible. Did I say trivialize the end game? I meant trivialize the start of the game. You want to trivialize the start of the game so that you can get to the end game quicker when you've already played the game multiple times. No one wants to slog through the campaign of Path of Exile multiple times. And I think that's a big thing too. Diablo 2's campaign was short enough to go through multiple times, and it's also fun. Like, it's a cool campaign. The cinematics are awesome. Like, who doesn't watch the cinematic transitioning from Act 2 to Act 3? That Tyrael fight scene against, like, the unbound Mephisto is iconic. Diablo 4 has eschewed this. You don't even touch the campaign ever again. But Path of Exile does make you go through the campaign, and that campaign, like I said too, people just skip it. There's nothing that keeps me there through some sort of cinematic thing that ties the story together. Again, looking back at Diablo 2, as I've bounced through these 3 games so many times, with Diablo 2, you just simply jump through the campaign, you ignore all the text people throw your way, and those 4 or 5, or well, 6 if you count the intro, cinematics tie the game together. You know the story of Diablo 2 solely from those cinematics. And I think it's what really slows Path of Exile down. It has a beautiful campaign, but I just don't care about it enough because I'm trying to play through it. So in recap, I think I'm developing it. I think you cut down Act 3, divide it in half, or cut it down by 33%. Or as a veteran, you just get rid of the acts altogether, and you just start on maybe some form of the Atlas map that gets you to level 65. Or the Atlas map itself just randomly generates locations for you that you can go through until you're 65. I think too that there's a further conversation there between the endgame variety of D4 versus PoE2, and how it just kind of feels like a lot of the same system in PoE2 versus D4 is broken into pit trials, hell tides, crossed undercity stuff. You have the raid now, so there's a lot of things. But again, the big crux of this argument is that you're comparing a game that has been 1 year in its early access to a game that is now 2 years into its production. So there is that comparison point to at least be fair about, right? But I think that's the kind of current snag up with the inertia or the issue when playing through Path of Exile. If you want to take this a step further, you can take a look at build diversity, and I think that's its own little nugget to talk about. So build diversity in Path of Exile is amazing because you have this huge passive tree to tap into, right? And that passive tree gives you so many fun avenues to build out characters. Hey, you started as a monk? Well, I'm going to go really heavy into the intellect portion and of the tree, which is reserved for the sorceress and whatnot. And I'm going to pull in tons of elemental damage abilities. Or you know what? No, I'm going to go further into the dexterity portion and try and pull in a lot of evade or a lot of other things to try to supplement my monk's capabilities. So that is really fun and it's great. But I think that there's 2 big hangups right now with the build diversity. One is because the game doesn't have all of its classes implemented, it also doesn't have all of its weapons implemented. An example of this would be, I want to play a warrior. By and large, mace skills are very underwhelming. And also, by and large, a lot of the warrior skills are underwhelming because they're only bound to the hammer. Now, with Druid, we get access to the talisman, and that's awesome, so that we can play a lot of fun stuff with the bear, having fun with all the slam mechanics, the jagged ground mechanics, the totem mechanics, and all the fire mechanics. Those are all sick. But maybe I just want to play a warrior that is a warrior, and playing with just a hammer is not as maybe conducive. So I think when we get the inclusion of the axe and the dual swords, or it's a dual swords or just one sword, it's swords, let's just say swords, it's going to really open the door for the warrior. I think the warrior is the least interesting class right now because it can't flex the capability to really play with the one portion of the passive tree that is the least complete, and that is the strength and strength dex portion of it. Well, I guess in some regard the strength intellect portion, because we still don't have the Templar, but still, it leaves a lot to be desired. And I think another portion of this that could really help a brand new character, because that's what we're talking about here, right? Is when you look at the passive tree, it should be color coded. Let's just say blue is intellect, green is dex, and red is strength. I think that's a pretty common color palette. The top of the tree, the direct north from a cardinal direction, should be all blue looking clusters or blue tint in the background, whatever it is. And then if we look southwest and southeast, again, from a cardinal direction standpoint, those should be colored respectively, green background, red background. And then the portions that are cross attribute, strength intelligence, strength dex, dex intelligence, should mesh those backgrounds. And this allows a visual cue for a brand new player to go, oh, okay, cool. This is intellect strength, this is intellect dexterity. I am playing this intellect character. I know I can blend into these and give myself a little bit of direction. So while I think that the build diversity is high in Path of Exile, I think the build diversity gets hung up on analysis paralysis. You look at this tree and you go, oh, what the fuck do I do? And I think it's fixed by visual cues and by just allowing people to really feel empowered by the search function. That really helps out. And I guess the third part of that too is actually having true build diversity from a mechanic standpoint. You do have it from an option standpoint. I can make, let me think, a fire bear druid, or I'm not druid, monk, and be fine with it, you know? But really right now what reigns supreme is ice. Ice is reign supreme almost the entire, frost is reign supreme almost the entire 1 year of the game's life. It's bounced back and forth between fire and, between frost and lightning, but we've also had a bit of love from poison in there. So I think that if you have build diversity has to also be mechanically enough diverse to present a wide range of true options for builds. Now, unfortunately, you're also playing an action RPG, and the current gaming climate doesn't require for true build diversity because people will always want to play S and A tier builds. So I think you battle that by not crunching the ceiling, by raising the floor, which I think Path of Exile has done really well in the past and continues to do so, but it's still, I think, one of its biggest hanging points. And again, I think it's linked to the fact that the game is in early access and doesn't have all of its classes, let alone all of its weapons. And one last subject to hit here for Path of Exile is the performance. And I'm not going to drag this out a huge bit. This patch added a huge performance bump, and it is noticeable. FPS has been improved across both PC and console. The game loads much faster. It's much more responsive, but it's a huge system hog. And they've even explained this. They said, hey, right now, it's really drawing more power from cores than it should. I have a Ryzen 9 9950 X3D. Just came out last year, right? Like super cool CPU, but it's spiking my CPU upwards to like 80 degrees Celsius when no other game is. I've got 7 case fans. I've got a closed loop intercooler. I got the fleshlight in there. I don't know. It's got everything. And it definitely still hits those snags. There's also this issue with these, I'm going to call them soft crashes. It's not a crash to a desktop, a CTD. The game just simply goes black. It locks for about a minute or so, and then you see the grinding gear logo go of the gears grinding, and then the game resumes. Those soft crashes happen very often. I would say probably once every 30, 45 minutes for me. And I'm pretty tech savvy. I know all the tricks to when it comes to resetting your drivers, clean driver installs, and all that. And I've done all those things to see if it was a me issue, and it still could be a me issue, right? The whole problem with production launch of a game is you now have a game that on way more hardware than you originally tested on. So this is something that I imagine will just get worked out with early access. It's not a huge mark against Path of Exile, but it definitely was something that made it so that I couldn't enjoy the game as fluidly as Diablo 4, because Diablo 4 just has had so much more time under that hood. So we've talked about both games, right? We've talked about, hey, why Season 11 is so great, why Patch Point 4 is so great. We've talked about the pain points of both. But in conclusion, my take is that Diablo 4 right now is just the better game because it's been out forever. And again, I've said that so many times, and I'm sorry, but the Paladin is one of my favorite classes in Diablo. So it was a delight to finally play a Paladin. It took Blizzard a long time to get to that point, which is unfortunate. And again, a lot of people are going to have problems with wanting to support Blizzard or wanting to deal with the price of the DLC that corresponds to playing the Paladin. Of course, you do get a second character class for that DLC, which is nice. And I do not also like that if you want to buy like a catch-up version of the game that has all the previous DLCs, it's something like the same price point as just buying the DLC. It's like a really wonky price schedule that they've set up for the game. And I get it. It's just a way to like kind of get people in the door, but it also kind of sucks for those of us that have supported it through every step of the way. So there are those things worth considering. Like right now, if you want to buy the Hatred Collection, that includes all 3 versions of the game, it is $70. So there's that to consider. right? Versus Path of Exile, which is technically, but not really, free. Now, if you wanted to buy, like, I think it's right now because it's on sale, right? You can, it's $70 versus simply buying every single version of the game. It's just in a really weird pricing situation, which I am not too stoked on. I think that it kind of sucks. So there is that when it comes to the pricing of the game. Outside of that, though, I think the capability to just simply jump into the game is what makes it such a stronger action RPG experience right now. Path of Exile 2 just has too much inertia built into it. And as I've said before, fixing that inertia comes down to, I think, just outright removing the campaign for people that have already completed it, just like Diablo did. I don't even have to do anything anymore to play the basically the end game of Diablo. Make some sort of Atlas map that you can jump into and play. That's like an Atlas diet, something that's like not the complete Atlas map. It's like a smaller version of it or something like that. There are those things. I think that there's lots of solutions that Grinding Gear can take, and they're really good about taking community feedback, applying it, and making the game better. So do I think that Diablo 4 is a better game right now? Absolutely. Do I think Path of Exile 2 will be the better game when it's complete? 100%. Because I think it's going to add such a vast amount of build diversity. And I think that build diversity is going to be helped by future improvements to the quality of life of the UX, meaning the user experience, right? You will be able to navigate Path of Exile 2 faster, better, and cleaner in the future once they've added all of its systems and fleshed everything out. Much like we had have in Diablo 4 now compared to Diablo 4's launch. Diablo 4 is still a lot of the same stuff. So if you didn't like Diablo 4 at launch, you just won't like it now. If you didn't like that system of playstyle and everything and you thought it was too shallow, it didn't get deeper. It's just the same system. There's better stuff to do at the end game. And like I've said before, the Diablo 4 endgame feels diverse because every single thing feels like it's its own encapsulated system that gives back to itself. Path of Exile 2's endgame system has a linking thing in the Atlas map, but those systems just kind of, one of them maybe just completely broken for that season, so it's not as fun, or maybe it's just the only one that you do. There are progressions for those end of game situations, but they just don't feel very cohesive to me. So no matter what you choose, Diablo 4 or Path of Exile 2, as long as it vibes with the way that you want to play action RPGs, it's going to be the right choice. But if you're stuck between the two and you just want one to jump into and go hog wild with, it's going to be Diablo 4. But go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. Do you think that Path of Exile 2 is just blows it out of the water? Or have you hit the same snags that I hit, and when you tried Diablo 4, it just resonated better with you? And I think that's worth mentioning. I played Path of Exile 2 first, because I was like, nah, another Diablo season, why am I going to do that? And I was having so much fun with the Druid, but then I got burnt out with the progression through the campaign. By the time I hit like level, I don't even remember what level my Druid is, like 60 something, 70 something. I didn't even want to play the end game. I was just exhausted. And it took me 2 weeks, however long. I don't have the most time in the world to grind through everything. And on top of it, those performance issues really pissed me off. They were really like hindering my enjoyment of the game, because my computer would give me like overheating signals and stuff like that. That's a bit of a user error, right? I can't attribute that to the game itself, but it is worth mentioning. Versus Diablo 4, I started playing like a day after Christmas, and I got to max level, and then I got into a good chunk of the Paragon board, and I was able to play all the end game mechanics and have a lot of fun. Will I bounce off of Diablo 4 quicker? Probably. But I was able to enjoy my time with it faster than Path of Exile. And I think that is the ultimate crux of this entire video. But again, let me know in the comment section below how you're feeling, what you're enjoying. Are you excited about things in the future too? Like, yeah, I agree with you. D4 is a better game now, but Path of Exile is the better game in the future. Or do you think it's going to swap? Whatever it is, let it be known in the comment section below. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.